A pro-Palestinian group has vowed to take its fight to shut down Brisbane's Story Bridge for a mass protest to court if needed after police flagged security and safety concerns. Justice for Palestine has also begun preparations for the major rally despite not yet getting the green light. Kosha, we saw this weeks ago here in Sydney. The protesters didn't get the green light. They took it to court. They won at the 11th hour, hijacked the Harbour Bridge. You know, the terror flags were being waved. It was an embarrassment. The pictures went worldwide. Are these protesters now more and more emboldened? Because we saw the steps of the Sydney Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, now the Story Bridge in Brisbane. It's a weekly thing now.
They are. I think the precedent of Sydney and what the High Court there did is obviously something that they are looking at, and they're, I'm sure, going to do the same thing in Queensland, and we'll see. Each court is different. But it's striking to the heart of taking advantage of the laws in free countries like Australia that do protect the right to peaceful assembly, but they're using it for a cause that not everybody is sympathetic to. There are people who are sympathetic to it, but when you block traffic and take over iconic landmarks for something, they're not exactly the most sympathetic figures, even if people have sympathy for the humanitarian crisis and things like that over there. So it is interesting. I think it's an example of multiculturalism. You import a lot of people with different allegiances and values into the country, and then you've got sort of these laws that protect protests, peaceful protests, as they should. Those are good laws to have. You are going to see them use that to their advantage, and the Sydney precedent, I think, just is a blueprint. So I do think we're going to see it more and more everywhere. Yeah,
which is a shame. And again, it's a terrible precedent, and just the Australian Jewish community right now are just tearing their hair out. Now, look, this is interesting. CNN is reporting that Google searches for Epstein are down 89% from just 3 weeks ago. Have a look at this.
I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
This has been for 3 weeks now.
Exactly. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor.
Oh, a dud of a story now, Kosha. They say that CNN are shocked. They can barely contain their shock right now. But what do you put it down to?
They say a week is a lifetime in politics, and maybe we're seeing that. There's so much coming out of this administration. They call it the flood the zone strategy, just news and everything we just talked about right now in this segment, and then 100 things on top of that. So there's just so much going on that when you're trying to save the world and the world is on fire, so to speak, a story does eventually diminish. It is interesting, though, because the Epstein story is about so much more than just Epstein, the character. It really goes down to transparency and the government, the perception that the government covers things up or protects powerful people and all of that. That, I think, remains a very potent strain in the electorate. A lot of people are very angry about that in all sorts of contexts, from the way COVID was handled to all sorts of other things, and this kind of symbolizes that. But I think the story itself, we have bigger fish to fry, is what this poll is saying, and it is interesting that the Google search results are down 89%. That surprised me.
It's incredible. Well, you know what? It comes in swings and roundabouts, the news, so we'll see. I'm sure at some point it'll re-emerge in that news cycle. Kosha Gada, lovely to see you. Thanks so much for joining me on the show this evening. Really appreciate it.